Today's video is all about how to find the volume of a rectangular prism. So these are shapes that you come across all the time, things like your cereal box, a rectangular prism shaped room, just a cube of something in your house. So rectangular prisms are these rectangular prism shapes. They've got rectangles on all sides, or they could be squares, which are just special rectangles. And the volume is how much space can you fit something inside of that shape. So we call them cubic units, and hopefully this is a really good visual. I have filled this rectangular prism with little cubes. These are cubic units, and each one of them measures 1 unit by 1 unit by 1 unit. So I could open this up and take out individually all these little cubes, and I could count them, but I think that would take forever. Okay, so I could take these out one at a time and count them up. Or I can use a formula, which is a shortcut for finding the volume. Now, I could count these up, and if I were to do that, there are 27 cubes in this shape. Or I could use my formula, which is volume equals length times width times height to find the 27 that way. And here's my length. We have 3 units long, times the width going the other direction is another 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Times the height, which is also 3. 9 times 3 gets me that 27 cubes that I could count one by one, but using the formula tends to be a lot quicker. Plus, the formula is a lot nicer when you have things like decimals or fractions. So let's use this formula. Instead of counting cubes, we're going to just dive in and do the math using the numbers. Now, if you want to check things on a calculator, feel free to do that, especially when the numbers get tricky. I'm going to show you the long way, but a calculator is a great tool for checking and making sure your volume makes sense. So the first thing I recommend always doing is writing down your formula and then plugging in the numbers. So I'm going to write volume equals length times width times height, and you can use the multiplication dots, you can use a times symbol, you can just stick them together. It's totally up to you. And so volume equals the length and width and height. Now this is a cube, so it doesn't matter. They're all 7s. And I don't want you to get stuck by worrying about which one's the width, which one's the height, which one's the length. You can turn your rectangular prism anyway, as long as you always just choose one of the sides for length. One is the width, one is the height. You'll be good to go. So this will be 7 times 7 times 7. Now you can do this out. You could check it on a calculator. I'm just going to solve what I know first. I know the first part, 7 times 7 is 49. I'm going to bring down the other times 7. Now I know I have to do 49 times 7. I don't know that, so I'm going to solve it off to the side. 49 times 7. 7 times 9 is 63. Regroup. 7 times 4 is 28. Plus 6 would be 34. And so my volume equals 343 inches cubed, or cubic inches. There's a 3 because I multiplied inches times inches times inches. So that would be the volume of this cube in cubic inches. Let's try this formula using a different shape. So now we've got a wider and flatter rectangular prism, but the formula is always the same. Volume equals length times width times height. So once again, I'm going to pick one as the length. I'll pick the 12. We'll do times 11 for width times the height, which is 9.2. Okay, now you can decide what you want to do for this. You can multiply them in any order. So if you know a math fact, you can pick those two numbers. You can also double check on a calculator. I'll show you the way I do this. So I'm going to do 12 times 11 first. If you don't know 12 times 11, there is no shame in writing it off to the side and solving it. So if I'm someone who needs to see it, I put a placeholder 0, I add these up, and I get 132. So I have 132 times 9.2. Now, once again, I can't do this way. I'm going to find a spot off to the side, and I'm going to solve this. So I put the longer number on top, 132, 9.2 down below, and I'm going to multiply. I ignore the decimal until the very end. So 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 times 1 is 2. I'm done with the 2. I put a placeholder 0. 9 times 2 is 18. 9 times 3 is 27, plus 1 is 28. And 9 times 1 is 9, plus 2 is 11. I'm going to add these up. And then I place my decimal back in. There's 1 decimal place in my factors, so there's 1 in my answer. So I got a volume of 1,214.4 centimeters cubed or cubic centimeters. And you're welcome to check this on a calculator if you're not sure or if it's challenging today. Okay, the last one I want to do is I just want to show you that this also works with some fractions, and this one should be a freebie for your assignment today. These ones were just examples, and now we're on to our freebies. So once again, I'm going to model what I would do from start to finish. So I always write my formula. Volume equals length times width times height. I'm going to plug in or substitute each one of those measurements. So I'm going to call 5.5 the length, times the width, which I'm going to call 5, times the height, which is 4 1/4. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to take this a step at a time. I'm always someone who likes to go in order, so I just like to do whatever's first, even if it makes it a little tricky later. So I'm going to do 5.5 times 5. Now, some people can figure that out. Some people want to convert this to decimals and do 5.5 times 5. I'm going to remind us how to multiply with fractions. So the first thing we have to do is we are going to make sure that everything looks like a fraction. So I'm going to get 2 fraction bars ready. This one over here, 5 wholes, is really easy. It's just 5 over 1. That means 5 wholes. The other thing we have to do over here is we have to remember Texas is a clue that I've used, which means I'm going to do 5 times 2 for 10 pieces, plus 1 more makes 11. So if I were to count them up, there's 11 halves, okay? Texas, because the X means multiply 5 times 2. And then you add 1 more to make 11, and 11 halves. Now I'm going to try and multiply these. Okay, so 11 times 5 is 55 up top, and 2 times 1 is 2 down below. Now usually we would convert this back into a mixed number. However, I know I'm going to be multiplying by another fraction anyways, so I'm just going to keep this like it is. And then I'm going to multiply by 4 1/4, but I have to make that into a fraction too. So before I change this back, I'm going to do my next multiplication step, and then I'll change it back at the very end. So Texas, once again, 4 times 4 is 16, plus 1 makes 17/4. And I'm going to multiply these, get my final answer, and convert it back to a mixed number. Okay, so I am going to do my denominator first, because I know 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, 55 times 17. So I could do this off to the side. Just for time's sake, I'm going to show how a calculator could be helpful. I'm going to type in 55 times 17, and I get 935. Woo! 935 eighths. That is definitely improper. So I want to make it a mixed number again. So I'm going to use this line as division, and I'm going to do 935 divided by 8 for my final answer. So 935 divided by 8, and I should get my answer. So 8 goes into 9 once, 8, 1 left over, bring down my 3. 8 goes into 13 once, 8 times, subtract, and I get 5 left over. Bring down my 5. 8 goes into 55. Let's see, 6 times. That is 48. And there's 7 left over, so it's a remainder 7. But I know that this really means 116 7 eighths. All I have to do is get my label, which is millimeters cubed, and circle my final answer. So lots of steps, but it still works even with complicated things like decimals and fractions. So all you really need to remember today is to use your formula, volume equals length times width times height. And if you want to use a calculator today to double check, I think it's a great day to use that as a math tool. So pause and rewind this if you need to see it again. Feel free to jot some things down, especially on this one, which was your freebie. Good luck today. Do your best, and I can't wait to see your math.